One Flew Over from NCIS, Origins Season 1, Episode 7, exemplifies the dilemma the CBS prequel faces. Does it want to be a standalone TV crime drama, or is it primarily the narrative of young Leroy Jethro Gibbs? While it does a fantastic job in the former area, this episode falls short in the latter. An old woman who was discovered dead by the side of the road is the subject of this week's One Flew Over case. However, in order to maintain some semblance of mystery, the circumstances behind Alice Glenn's death and the individuals in her life are given very little elaboration. Though pleasant, the sequences with Gibbs and Franks feel almost like they belong in a separate show. This is where the true effort is spent. The fact that NCIS, Origins Season 1, Episode 7 explains Mike Frank's significance in Gibbs' life is its most significant feature. The audience witnesses Frank's transformation from the man looking into Gibbs' family's deaths to a mentor and friend. It's moving to see that connection go from antagonistic to supporting, especially at two pivotal points. When Franks confronts Gibbs about his actions, the two practically fight, and when Franks purposefully leaves Gibbs alone with his family's case file. As is appropriate when reenacting a relationship that spectators are aware lasts for decades, there is a great deal of emotion in each of those situations. Thus, the heavy work in this episode falls to actors Austin Stoll and Kyle Schmid. Stoll handles Gibbs' different outbursts with ease since he has already shown that he can take Gibbs from 0 to 60 and back again. He is constantly confronted by Schmid. The scenes in One Flew Over, where the celebrities must use their humor, are actually the more unexpected ones. Gibbs is caring for an injured bird that flies into his apartment as part of the subplot, and Stoll's sequences with the bird are so charming that the audience hardly wants them to stop. Since the bird represents Gibbs' personal healing, the authors thankfully give it a happy conclusion. There would have been more sadness added for drama's sake on a different program. Franks offers to assist Gibbs in building a birdhouse after learning that Lola Dominguez would be visiting his house. These little household moments are endearing and humorous, and they compensate for the lack of other material on which the program may rely. The show feels slower and less concentrated whenever Gibbs, Franks, or both aren't the main focus. It has been evident during the past several NCIS Origins episodes that the show has trouble keeping up with its weekly plotlines. The NCIS investigations have been erratic, mostly because the tales have not been sufficiently developed, but it is evident where it intends to take the stories of Gibbs and the others in his life, since its murder case never gets off the ground. One Flew Over is the clearest illustration of this conundrum to date. The main question is whether victim Alice Glenn was murdered or vanished from her retirement home, which isn't really a question because NCIS can't investigate if there isn't a murder. Only one of the story's three main characters is depicted as a suspect, which suggests he can't really be the murderer because that person is seldom the first one thought of. In order for the authors to neatly wrap up the story, the true culprit also makes a complete confession, much like in Incognito, Season 1, Episode 6. Additionally, that person's motive for killing Alice is as conventional as they come. Instead of being handled as a standalone concept, it seems as though the case was slapped together to fit in between all of the Gibbs and Frank stuff. It is quite possible for NCIS Origins to concentrate only on Gibbs' life, but in order to be a complete TV crime drama, it must give its cases the same amount of attention and consideration as its individual tales. This was something that the other series in the franchise, as well as its precursor JAG, were able to do on a frequent enough basis. However, if the prequel is to be as long as some of its predecessors, solving the murder cannot just be what happens before the closing credits roll. Episode 7 also restricts the actions of the majority of the other characters because the Alice Glenn probe doesn't receive much screen time. The sequence involving Tish Kuala and Lala is crucial because it sets up Tish's confrontation with Franks on his refusal to quit pursuing the individual who attacked her. The fact that Eddie didn't actually move in with Lala is also confirmed. But fans don't care because it was essentially expected when Lala confessed to cheating on him at the conclusion of Incognito. For the duration of the first season, NCIS Origins must continue to advance the remaining characters. All one has to do is watch Blue Bayou, one of the greatest NCIS episodes in any of the series in Season 1. It had a clear sense of the story it wished to convey and detailed the past of Gibbs' landlady Ruth, who first appears here when Gibbs arrives into his flat. The emotional tale of One Flew Over is strong, yet it stands alone. There is no compelling mystery, no character growth for anybody but Gibbs or Franks, and no memorable sequences that jump off the screen. At fact, one of the medical examiners at the coroner's office makes the utterly bizarre suggestion that Lala and Randy Randolph should become parents. The trope of the one eccentric individual in a TV procedural, typically the scientist or technical expert, has grown exceedingly stale. As Origins does a great job at what it does. Without a doubt, it has appropriately cast its two protagonists. However, it lacks a clear idea of the sort of program it wants to be beyond that, and as a result, it either relies too much on plots that are predictable or doesn't grow enough. Season 1 has plenty of time to make amends and give the remaining episodes some heft. If it succeeds, it may establish a position for itself in the history of the NCIS brand that goes beyond that of a precursor. There are, after all, many tales to be told about Gibbs, Franks, and the early years of NIS.